It's the royal betrayal no one saw coming. After years of standing by Prince Andrew through scandal after scandal, Sarah Ferguson might finally be done protecting him, and the whispers say she's ready to turn him in to save herself. For decades, they played the perfect post-divorce couple, still living together, still smiling for the cameras, still pretending the royal family hadn't quietly shut the door on them. But behind the walls of Royal Lodge, that picture is shattering fast. Insiders say Sarah's furious, claiming Andrew pushed her into the same dark connections that destroyed his reputation. And now, with new revelations surfacing about Epstein, leaked emails, and the royal family's growing disgust, she's threatening to expose everything. Because in the ruthless world of royalty, loyalty only lasts until survival kicks in. And this time, Sarah Ferguson may be ready to burn the palace to the ground, just to save herself. But how did it come to this? Let's rewind to where the cracks first began. To the world, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew always seemed like the royals who refused to play by the rules. They laughed louder, loved harder, and cared less about tradition than anyone else in the palace. Even after their divorce in 1996, they stayed under the same roof, an odd arrangement that kept everyone guessing. At first, people called it enduring, a modern twist on royal romance. They're the exes who never truly split, tabloids wrote. And for years, that image worked. While the rest of the royal family moved with precision and distance, Sarah and Andrew looked human, flawed, funny, even relatable. They were supposed to be the safe ones. But that's the thing about royal stories, they always have a shadow, and behind that easy charm was a partnership built not just on affection, but on survival. Sarah needed financial stability, Andrew needed loyalty. Together, they kept each other relevant in a world that had already decided they didn't belong. It worked, until it didn't. Because as their public image softened, their private choices were hardening into something much darker. The smiles at garden parties, the polite interviews, all of it was built on a quiet pact. We protect each other no matter what. And that promise would come back to destroy them both. But how did a royal love story turn into a scandal that shook the crown? It all began with one name they should have never let into their lives.
When Jeffrey Epstein entered their world, everything changed. At first, he was just another wealthy connection, a man who seemed to have all the right friends, all the right parties, and all the right promises. For Prince Andrew, it was a way to stay relevant among the global elite. For Sarah Ferguson, it was a lifeline. Epstein's money, influence, and generosity helped her patch up years of financial trouble. But what neither of them realized, or maybe refused to see, was that they were walking straight into a trap that would define the rest of their lives. By the time Epstein's crimes began surfacing, their connection to him was too deep to untangle. Private jets, secret meetings, and whispered favors, it all pointed back to them. And once Epstein's arrest hit headlines, there was no hiding from it. Every photograph, every handshake, every email suddenly became evidence of complicity. Prince Andrew tried to keep his composure. He called the allegations baseless, even after Virginia Giuffre came forward with her story, one that painted a picture of a royal caught in the darkest corners of Epstein's world. The palace went silent, charities cut ties, and the monarchy itself began to shake. But Sarah's role, that's where things got messy. Leaked emails revealed she had called Epstein her steadfast, generous friend. He'd allegedly financed parts of her lifestyle for over a decade, and when that truth broke, it was impossible to spin. She claimed he had threatened her, that she'd been manipulated, but the damage was done. The royal image they'd worked so hard to protect was collapsing, fast, and as Epstein's story spiraled into tragedy, it pulled both of them down with it. Yet behind the scenes, something else was happening. A slow, silent fracture between the two people who once vowed to stand united. Because while the world saw them as a disgraced duo, Sarah saw something worse. A man who had dragged her into his storm and left her to face the lightning alone.
Inside Royal Lodge, the walls are starting to talk. What used to be quiet dinners and polite conversation has turned into shouting, slammed doors, and icy silences that stretch for days. The couple, once known for laughing at royal formality, now barely speak without blaming each other. Sources close to the family say Sarah feels cornered, betrayed by the man she once defended against the world. In her eyes, Andrew didn't just ruin his own reputation, he ruined hers too. She reportedly believes he pressured her into seeking financial help from Epstein years ago, and that every consequence since has been a direct result of his choices. Andrew, of course, sees it differently. He insists Sarah always lived beyond her means, that she made her own mistakes, and that dragging his name through the mud won't save hers. The result? An endless tug-of-war where every argument digs the hole deeper. Even their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, are said to be caught in the middle, embarrassed, heartbroken, and exhausted by the headlines. What once was a united front has splintered into something toxic. And behind that polite royal facade, Sarah is done playing nice. She's been humiliated, stripped of titles, and quietly pushed out of royal circles. The charities that once praised her now want distance. Her public image, once bubbly and warm, has been replaced by whispers of scandal. But she's not planning to fade quietly into the background. Insiders claim Sarah has kept records, emails, and old communications, just in case. The kind of proof that could blow the roof off the royal facade if ever released. And now those same insiders believe she's ready to use them. Because when a woman like Sarah Ferguson feels betrayed, silence isn't loyalty anymore, it's leverage. And according to people close to the palace, she's holding on to something that could make this scandal look tame in comparison. What she does with it next could change everything.
Every scandal reaches a point where silence becomes impossible. For Sarah Ferguson, that moment may have already arrived. For years, she stood beside Prince Andrew, defending him when few others would, keeping the peace and maintaining that strange illusion of a united family. But after losing her title, her patronages, and much of the public sympathy, Sarah's patience has run out. Now, reports suggest she's ready to speak out. Not to attack, but to protect herself. There are claims she's holding old correspondence, messages, even details that could change how people see what really went on behind the scenes. Nothing public yet, but the royal circle is said to be uneasy. If Sarah decides to talk, it won't just be about Andrew. It could touch on the people who enabled, ignored, or quietly protected him. The very figures the monarchy depends on to stay untouchable. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Andrew, meanwhile, seems increasingly anxious. Friends say he feels she's pulling away, and that her next move could finish what little is left of his reputation. But for Sarah, this may be less about revenge and more about survival. After years of shielding others, she's finally looking out for herself. And if that means telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, she might just be ready. Because at this point, protecting her image, may mean exposing everything else.
As the tension between Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew grows, their world keeps shrinking. Royal Lodge, once their safe haven, now feels like the last reminder of a life that's slipping away. Rumours suggest eviction could be next, and even the royal family's patience has worn thin. Andrew has already given up his titles, his roles, and most of his dignity in the public eye. For Sarah, the fallout has been quieter, but just as heavy. Once loved for her openness and charm, she's now seen as a liability, a relic of royal scandal the firm would rather forget. Charities have distanced themselves, her reputation is bruised, and her public image is balancing on a knife's edge. Their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, are caught in the crossfire, still invited to royal gatherings, but walking on eggshells, aware that one wrong headline could change that overnight. It's a painful position, loyal to their parents, yet tied to a royal institution that wants them gone. Behind the headlines, Sarah is said to be weighing her next move carefully. She knows that any step, a book, an interview, even a comment, could reopen wounds the palace once sealed. But silence has its own cost. And maybe that's where this story is really headed. Not toward another explosive scandal, but toward a quiet reckoning, a moment where both Andrew and Sarah have to face what's left when power, privilege, and protection are gone. Because in the end, this was never just about reputation. It's about what happens when the people who once lived above the rules finally run out of places to hide. And as the royal family braces for whatever comes next, one thing feels certain. The story of Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew isn't over. It's just entering its most unpredictable chapter yet.